The chest burster in the original Alien was one of the most shocking and wonderful effects in film history. We had to repeat it, but we had to do something a little different.
I actually endeavored on the second picture to make it even less gory than the first one, because I think the chest burster scene is pretty gory in and of itself, although the number of seconds of gore, say, throughout the film is not that great. But I actually tried to pull back even more from that, because I figured, okay, the first film told you what could happen. We don't have to revel in it.
The chest burster is representative of all of the creature effects in the films, that they have all changed slightly. And what you hope you do is you're making it more specific to the story, and that you're making improvements without destroying the original designs of these creatures, which are really just great designs.
We had a copy of the original chest burster from the first film, and the thing that we were noticing in the original sculpture was there was an indication that there were to be arms, little arms on the thing, and I wasn't really aware of them in the film.
Jim did want to add arms to it. He wanted it to look like the hands were helping free itself, pushing itself out. I think he felt that the one in the first one was just a little too larval and a little too disconnected from what it ultimately will become.
We built 2 chest bursters, one of which had 3 joints in the waist so that it could do a curling effect as it burst through the chest, and that was like a big punching ram that could come through the, it was an actress with her body backed away from the set,
on a slant board,
so that there was a fake prop coming down from basically from her armpits forward.
False body,
sort of like the body up through the table, kind of a magician's gag. And so when the first chest burster came through, we were able to literally punch through like a punching rod and come through a latex skin and a distressed T-shirt that she was wearing, with a lot more energy than even in the John Hurt chest burst from the first film. In continuing that effect, we built an entirely...
There was a cut, and then the articulated puppet went inside.
And the articulate puppet was multiple layers of vertebrae that had 4 directions of universally organic motion, as well as small rods for the hands, so they had the praying mantis folds, and a much wider jaw actuation so that the mouth could open even further, because it had to be burnt.
Almost like a full tentacle.
Didn't Steve Norrington do
Yes.
that as well?
Yeah, I think Steve did that.
And then we had a puppet replica of the actress after it's come out and she's dead that fit into the cocoon so that they could hit it with a flamethrower.
So that was actually burnt. And if I remember right,
It's
the
still
hero
going.
puppet
It's
was...
still,
The hero puppet was thrashing a mile a minute.
Just was like,
Burn, baby.
okay, you know, hopefully we got this, because we're about to burn it right now.
You don't create fear with gore. You create disgust. It's a whole different emotion. And I think that certainly for me, the emphasis on the second picture was less on horror and more on terror. We wanted people to experience the fear and the suspense.
I remember going to the lab once, or whatever they called it, where they showed us the face huggers. And then as we were like looking at, you know, the thing, they sort of set it off.
Just remember that was a blast to puppeteer that, because it was just such a base reaction. You know, it's ever since you're a kid and you try to scare somebody to make them jump, and knowing that that's exactly what the point was for the audience, that was a lot of fun.
We had a puppet and an actuated puppet, but very difficult because it had to be controlled through water. So we had to really figure out how we could get all of these cables and everything hidden and not have everything leak out of the stasis tube at the same time.
The dissection scene from the first Alien film was literally a horseshoe crab with some oysters laid in the bottom and a little bit of extra latex rubber dressing on it. Shane built the dissection facehugger for the second film, and that was stomach tripe unrolled out to its honeycomb pattern.
Skin with silver paint
Chicken
on
skin.
it. Really weird.
And it was
horrible,
pinned, and
sticky
it was
stuff.
pinned out on a dissection board too. I mean, we had to put the thing in a refrigerator every night, and nobody would touch it except Shane. It was only because he had to.
And Lance. So Lance,
Bring in that horrible thing.
Lance Hendrickson was really good with it.
Yeah, he was fun.
Oh, buddy, what is that you got there? Oh, wow, look at that.
You know, and he'd get in there and start working.
Well,
with it.
you know, we like actors, and the stuff that we make, you have to help them do their job too. So if you make it as real as possible, that gives them something to react to.
In order to create the illusion of these 2 facehuggers, which are now loose in that room, created a half dozen different forms of this particular creature so that it could have a performance and become a character. Didn't change the design, extended the design, changed what it could do as an actor.
What Jim really wanted was that proximity and the tactileness of it. So there were a few different pieces that we built for that.
We had 2 hero face huggers, which had complete mobility of the fingers. It could crawl and reach and try and get at Newton, try and get at Ripley. Complete action, but operated literally by 6 or 7 puppeteers just to get all of those fingers doing everything they had to do. Huge bundle of cables. When Sigourney Weaver is holding it and fighting it away from her, there's a huge bundle of cables down her arm. She's creating a performance. Carrie's creating a performance. It's coming up over the table, trying to crawl out after her. And it's a very, very extensive animatronic cable-operated effect.
Probably the most complex of the pieces was the running face hugger. And that was, the mechanism for that was built by Rick Lazzarini. It was a very clever mechanism. It was like a pull toy, where there was a couple of pulleys that a cable would run through inside the body. And you had another cable that as you pulled the creature along, the wheels of the pulleys would turn, which would activate cams that made the legs scuttle.
This thing looks like a fucking Alaskan king crab.
But basically the wire's gonna come from here, straight, and from here, probably come out about here, that way. So that the tail angles down like this, it's gonna come down like this more. And the wire will be over the tail, and the sucker will spin it around.
It was, in fact, low-tech, high-art, very interesting concept, and this little thing was running at you, running across the room, and it was virtually a pull toy.
And then in addition to that, Cameron did some very clever things with reverse photography mixed with forward movement. There's actually 3 different pieces to this shot. When the creature runs out and stops, and then it leaps onto the leg of a table and then leaps right at the camera. And what that was the little pull toy face hugger running, stops, cut the camera, take that one out, place a floppy stunt face hugger on the table, and then we put a little eyelet in the ground where the little other running face hugger stopped, pull that back towards it, run that in reverse, cut the 2 together, and it looks like the creature runs up, stops, jumps onto the table leg. Then we place, for the last part of the shot, we placed the face hugger back on the table leg and yanked it directly towards camera. And when you cut those 3 pieces together, you see it run, jump, and leap at the camera. Those kind of in-camera tricks that I think Cameron was able to design and wrap his head around. A lot of directors fear that kind of thing because they don't have any experience. They're not willing to take the chance. And Cameron dives in and says, we can make this work, and here's how, and it works beautifully.
That was one of the first times that I had seen how cleverly you can make reverse photography work. I mean, and with a lot of elements that people would normally say limit it or make it impossible.
There was rain falling the whole time. So the rain actually changes direction in the middle of the shot, and we were all coming up to Jim saying, I don't think you've thought of this. There's rain falling down. It's going to ruin your shot. And he said, no, you're not going to see individual raindrops. You're going to see a texture, on the floor, a chatter, and whether it's going forward or whether it's going backwards, it's going to be random enough that it'll blend. And he was absolutely right. I think he doesn't oftentimes have a lot of patience with people who, limited vision the suits, and you know, Cameron would like go into the hallway with a guy in a suit, and he'd turn the camera upside down, you know, and we'd look at him, what's he doing? You know, he'd videotape a guy crawling on the floor upside down, and then go, hey, what do you think of that? And then there it is, of course. Oh yeah, crawling on the ceiling, you know, yeah, great. So he was very interested in expanding the capabilities of the creature.
What Jim wanted to do with the alien warriors was to give them more character, not necessarily in the design of what they looked like, but how they could act, what their performance was. And in order to do that, we had to redesign how that suit was made.
Jim's script had so much more action, things bouncing off walls and doing stuff, so we had to play with the anatomy, camera techniques, reverse shots, looking up, you know, shooting down on wires. We had levels of alien warrior suits. Some of them were as simple as spandex dance skins with very rough pieces on that would just catch highlights so that men could really fly around very quickly.
We had a whole range. We had dancers, we had stuntmen, we had just body performers that would all do different things in these suits. And then they were painted very starkly. They were very contrasty, you know, bright, hot highlights and dark shadows. And when you look at them in full light, they almost had the feeling of, you know, this like a skeleton costume you would wear for Halloween with the just painted bones. But when you put it in the right environment and when you lit it right, it was just the coolest thing. At that point, then it just became more of a feeling of an image rather than really focusing on a single character.
We built them in such a way that they would be more durable, they could go on and off quickly, and that they wouldn't have pieces that might be more susceptible to breaking. And you know, for instance, the dome on the alien, Jim just wanted to remove it, thought it would be, you know, a hassle, was afraid of it, you know, cracking or having to be replaced. You know, we'd have to cut and, you know, switch the dome out, whatever.
We tried to recreate the original Giger look, and we were so proud of it. We're like, yeah, that looks so clear and cool. And he's like, take that off. Yeah, that's good. Oh.
Beyond the men in the suits, we also had a dozen 8-foot-tall mannequins/puppets that were posable into pretty much any static form you wanted, and we could, by using wires and rods, do some limited puppeteering on them. But they were able to be posed in very insectoid poses, like a praying mantis kind of effect, crouching on the roof of the APC as Ripley's pulling out of the atmosphere plant, and things like that, so that Jim could ask for inhuman, impossible man in a suit poses, and he could get them on film.
In one or two cases, if we wanted something that looked really violent, we would hang up a dummy alien, sort of puppet control it, and literally blow the hell out of it. They were the good ones because you could really go to town on those and you could blow arms and legs and heads off. We used a lot of yellow dye, things like titanium tetrachloride, cyclohexylamine and acetic acid, which is the sort of A and B smoke composition. And we found that by putting one chemical in one hit, another chemical in the other, when they exploded, the two chemicals mixed and you got this sort of acid smoke effect coming from it.
Jim was in, not that he isn't now, but he was such in his prime as a filmmaker. You know, there's a part in it where the alien sticks its head inside of the APC, and I stick a gun in there and I say, eat this or something like that's my line, you know. And I remember, like, to get it perfectly, because it's all moving and we're running inside and we're slamming the door and, you know, doing all this sort of stuff, and the head's got to come in and then the gun's got to come in. I got to say my line. Eat this! It was such a problem that he just said, you know what, we'll do it, and we'll do it in reverse. And you put the gun in there, and they put the film in reverse, and we stuck it out and did it in reverse. And it was just like, it was the first time I'm like, wow, you shoot stuff in reverse. So it just comes right out, you know, and it goes right in. So it'll go right in. It's, you know, because we missed it like 4 or 5 times.
Steve Norrington, who's now gone on to be a very famous director, and Steve and I had stayed up round the clock all night working, trying to finish off one of the warrior puppets, the one that opens the doors on the APC, as Hicks, I think, what's he screaming, close the goddamn door or whatever, and then it opens up and shoots. And I just remember after all that work, getting that puppet done, because I think the scene had moved up when it was going to shoot or whatever, But I just remember that being, oh, what a great moment in the film. How worthwhile every moment that was, staying up all night.
What was great is Jim would invite us to dailies, and I think that was a real boost to everybody, because you could see the fruits of your labor and go, you know, this is really going to be special and great, and let's work this Sunday all night too.